This is the Gerry Callahan Show.
So here's what happened yesterday, September 2nd, Labor Day here in the United States. An American who was executed by Hamas was buried in Jerusalem. Huge turnout. Thousands of people showed up to say goodbye to Hersh Goldberg, Poland. On that same day, here in New York City, the savages were back. The Hamas supporters were marching in Midtown Manhattan. 7,000 is the estimate. They were waving Hamas flags. Yes, Americans or people here in America were marching in support of the scum that executed 6 hostages, including an American. And in America, the crowd, the rabble that supports Hamas was out in full force. They're back. Yes, they're back. They're back in Columbia. They're back on college campuses. They're back in our biggest city, waving the flag of a terrorist organization that just murdered an American along with 5 other innocent hostages. Two shots to the back of his head as the IDF closed in. They knew they would be freed in a matter of minutes, so they killed him. And here in America, we're talking about ceasefires. They're demanding. Biden, Harris, Tim Walz called for a ceasefire and allowing the Hamas savages to survive. Again, on this day, Joe Biden, who is at least in ceremonial president for now, was asked about the situation, and Joe Biden blamed Benjamin Netanyahu. He didn't sound outraged. He didn't express any real rage the way a American president should after one of his citizens was executed by terrorists. No, look at him. He's back. This is him just returning to the White House after 17 days on the beach, where he literally tweeted that he has worked tirelessly to release the hostages while laying his scrawny ass on a beach in Delaware. I mean, someone has to tell him it's over. Just step down. Allow Kamala to run as the incumbent. That they don't want to do that because then Kamala would have to drop this idea that it's time for a change. We need a new direction, as she is the sitting vice president. But here, I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm watching this whole thing unfold, and I'm outraged. Any decent American is outraged. An American was executed, an innocent American. Hell, they blew his arm off 11 months ago, held him in captivity for 11 months, and then executed him when they were about to free him. And this is the reaction you get from our commander-in-chief? No emotion, no anger, no rage. Doesn't sound pissed off at all. Just another day back at the office as this lamest of lame duck kind of plays out the string. Listen to this.
I'm heading to a national security meeting right now, and then going to Pittsburgh. And so checking on following up on what's happening in Israel, and then I'll be off to Pittsburgh.
Are you planning to present a final hostage deal for the both sides this week?
We're very close to that.
What makes you think that this deal will be successful in a way that the other deals were not?
Hope springs eternal.
Mr. President, do you think it's time for Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more on this issue? Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
No, not a word. Listen to that. Oh, I can't do this again. Not a word about Hamas. Not a word about Hersh Goldberg, Poland. Not a word about 6 hostages executed. No emotion, no anger. And he blames Netanyahu. He's not doing enough. God, he is disgusting. And he was heading into a meeting with Kamala Harris, who is running from this, of course, who said nothing. Unlike her running mate, the fakest of all fakes, the biggest fraud in American political history, Tim Walz, he was at the state fair enjoying a pork chop on a stick and a milkshake afterwards. And he's asked, I don't even care that he's running for vice president. He's asked about hostages being executed, and he has no reaction, no response, not a word, no anger, no warning. We're coming to get you. You know what the proper response is from the American president or from a candidate for president or a candidate for vice president? The proper response is, we're coming to get you. Like, what you killed an American, we are going to kill you. We are going to seek justice for Hirsch. Not a word like that, not even an emotion like that from these empty vessels, from these hollow, shallow, vapid people who want to get elected for 4 years, leading this country, and they show zero reaction to the death of an American, an innocent American, killed by terrorists. Watch this fraud. Go ahead.
Reaction to the 6 hostages being found dead in Gaza.
Thanks, everybody.
Your reaction to 6 innocent hostages being executed by terrorists. Thanks a lot, everybody. And he walks away with his milkshake. Oh, but he's folksy. He's got a T-shirt on and a camo hat, and he's having a milkshake with the people. No reaction. Literally no reaction to an American being executed. No reaction to the war in Gaza. Doesn't care at all. Neither does Kamala. Not even a word from Kamala Harris, who wants to be president, about an American being executed. These people are disgusting. I'm having trouble with this one. There are 75 million people in America who plan to vote to put this guy in the White House, to put her in the White House. It's mind-boggling right now. It really is. I mean, we saw the interview. I'm going to get to the CNN interview. That pathetic, sorry excuse for an interview with Dana Bash. Oh, I'm sorry, Dana Bash. We want to get that right. And her foot massage for these 2 frauds. But Biden, we worked tirelessly to get Hirsch home. No, you didn't work tirelessly, you fraud. You sat on the beach as this poor guy was executed. Disgusting. You know what else is disgusting? The reaction from Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to Donald Trump visiting Arlington National Cemetery. This one's gonna blow back on her and him. This is incredible. Kamala Harris has never said the names of the 13 servicemen and women. She got killed at Abbey Gate. She was the last one in the room when Biden made the political decision to pull out of Afghanistan so he could have a photo op, so he could have bragging rights before 9/11 and say, I got us out of Afghanistan. No, you botched this thing. It was a disaster by any definition. Everybody knows it. We saw the images. We've seen the families. We saw people hanging in the wheel wells of a plane, falling off the plane. We know this was a disaster by any measure. And yet, Joe Biden called it an extraordinary success. Joe Biden, who looked at his watch at the dignified transfer, who has never reached out to the family since that day. On that day, when he met with them, you know what he talked about? He talked about Beau Biden and how he knows what it's like to lose a loved one in war. Beau Biden, who died of brain cancer 6 years after he came home from Iraq. Well, the families on the 3rd anniversary, August 26th, invited Donald Trump to come to Arlington National Cemetery and lay wreaths at the graves of their children. So Trump, of course, showed up as he always has for these families. They have made it clear. They've met with him. They've talked to him. He's reached out to them. He's said their names. Joe Biden has never said their names. Kamala Harris has never said their names. They don't care about these families. And yet they didn't show up. Kamala Harris was home as And in her mansion in D.C., 4 miles from Arlington Cemetery, Joe Biden was on a beach. He could have come back to D.C. He could have laid a wreath. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were also invited. They took a pass, as they always do, because they're an inconvenience. These 13 families are an inconvenience to the Harris-Biden administration. So they didn't show up. They didn't care. Trump did. Trump didn't make a speech. He laid a wreath. Was he supposed to decline to show up on this solemn occasion when he was invited? They wanted him there. He was there. He consoled these families. And Harris, Biden, Walz, the media, they want to make Trump the bad guy, the guy who showed up for the families at their invitation. He's the bad guy. Kamala Harris, who stayed home, doing whatever, planning her next I was going to say interview, but there will be no more interviews. We'll get to that. But they didn't care. They didn't say their names. They didn't call the families. Trump did. And Trump's the bad guy. So Kamala Harris tweets, and this is disgusting. It really is. On so many levels. Here is Kamala Harris's tweet, which it's going to leave a mark. I really believe that. She writes, as vice president, I've had the privilege of visiting Arlington National several times. It's a solemn place, a place where we come together to honor American heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice. It is not a place for politics. And yet, as was reported, Donald Trump's team chose to film video there, resulting in an altercation with cemetery staff. Nobody knows anything about this altercation, by the way. There's no charges being pressed, or no one's given any details. Let me be clear. The former president disrespected sacred ground. She is disgusting. All for the sake of a political stunt. So you show up at the invitation of grieving families, and this charlatan calls it a stunt. This is nothing new from Trump. This is a man who called fallen service members suckers and losers. He did no such thing, and disparaged Medal of Honor recipients. He's a man who said of service members, I don't get it. What's in it for them? He didn't say that. That's a hoax. That's all they got, hoaxes and lies. This is a man who's unable to comprehend anything other than service to himself. So the guy who showed up for the families is the bad guy. The woman who sat in her home 4 miles away, she's respectful. She's the one who showed respect. If there's one thing on which we as Americans can agree, it's that our veterans, military families, and service members should be honored, never disparaged, and treated with nothing less than our highest respect and gratitude. Well, why don't you do that, Kamala? Why didn't you do that? When you were asked to do that, you didn't show up. You didn't say anything. Once again, 3 years later, she's never said their names. 3 years later, Joe Biden, has never said their names. And the guy who went there and laid a wreath is the bad guy because they videotaped it. That's what the families wanted. And by the way, there's video and photographs of Kamala and Joe Biden at Arlington Cemetery on other occasions. Not on this one, because this one makes them look bad. She writes, and it is my belief that someone who cannot meet this simple sacred duty should never stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. Wow, who's making this political? The woman who is attacking the guy who showed up, or the guy who showed up? And the families, of course, families have Trump's back, of course, because they know, because they know he has their back. Trump supports them. Trump shows up. Kamala Harris does not. Imagine being a family member, knowing your loved one got blown up by a terrorist, and the president and vice president don't care enough to call you, to talk to you, to say their names on the 3rd anniversary of this tragedy. Is disgusting. This is Tom Cotton, who has been great of late. He's fearless. Again, former Army Ranger, former guard at Arlington Cemetery, wrote a whole book about Arlington Cemetery. and he sits down. He goes into the lion's den, sits down with Democrat operative Kristen Welker, and explains why Trump's visit was completely appropriate, and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were AWOL on this occasion, which is just not presidential. That a president belonged there, a vice president belonged there on this occasion. Hell, you don't even have to talk. Trump didn't talk. You don't have to answer questions, Kamala. You have to lay a wreath, and you couldn't be bothered. Go ahead, play it. We don't have Tom. We don't have Tom Cotton.
Now we do. There was just an issue. 1 second.
Let me ask you about another one of the big headlines this week, Donald Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery. You've been talking about this. He attended a wreath-laying ceremony, obviously, for the 13 service members who were killed during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. He was invited by those family members, important to say that. He also had campaign staffers with him. Photos, videos were posted on a campaign site. Taking campaign photos and videos at grave sites is forbidden under federal law. You, of course, served at Arlington Cemetery in the Old Guard, so I know that this is a sacred place for you. Bottom line, though, I guess, Senator, is it ever appropriate to make campaign content at military grave sites?
He didn't take campaign photos there. These families, Gold Star families, whose children died because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's incompetence, invited him to the cemetery. And they asked him to take those photos because, as they told me yesterday, when I spoke to Kelly Barnett and Darren Hoover, the parents of Taylor Hoover, who has Arkansas ties, they don't get to go to the beach on Labor Day. They don't get to have barbecues. This is their one chance to have a memory of their children, to commemorate their service and to honor their sacrifice. They wanted President Trump there. They wanted to take those photos. You know who the families also invited? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Where were they? Joe Biden was sitting at a beach. Kamala Harris was sitting at her mansion in Washington, D.C. She was 4 miles away, 10 minutes. She could have gone to the cemetery and honored the sacrifice of those young men and women, but she hasn't. She never has spoken to them or taken a meeting with them.
Well, they did meet with them during the dignified transfer. They were with them at the dignified transfer.
Her and Joe Biden's incompetence, those 13 Americans were killed in Afghanistan.
So Kristen Welker goes, doing her best to defend Harris and Biden. She lied. We know Biden was at the dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base because we know he looked at his watch repeatedly. It was an inconvenience for him that day. Kamala Harris couldn't be bothered to show up. She did not go. Kristen Welker is lying on behalf of Kamala Harris. That's a major news anchor sitting there doing the bidding of the campaign. And of course, they corrected it later, but I'm not sure all the fact checkers, I'm not sure PolitiFact or Daniel Dale or Brian Steltler, I'm not sure they went to work on this one. Kristen Welker just lied to you. Kamala Harris was not there. Once again, she couldn't be bothered. And even if she were, Biden was there. That's 3 years ago. That's 3 years ago. He showed up for the dignified transfer. 3 years later, on the anniversary, he was on a beach tweeting about how tirelessly he's working. Well, the families, they put out statements, they made videos, and they are just heart-wrenching. Now, I'm pretty sure Kristen Welker didn't show you these videos, and most of the mainstream media are ignoring these folks. You can see them. They're online. I'm sure you can see them on Newsmax or Fox News, but the mainstream media, total blackout. We don't want to hear from these folks because, it doesn't make our girl look good. Now, they're long. There's one that I highly recommend. It's like 15 minutes long. It's all the families telling their stories. Not all, 8 of the 13, telling their stories of what they've gone through and how they've been ignored by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This is the father of Jared Schmitz, who lost his life at Abbey Gate. And He was great. They're all there. I mean, you can just feel their pain and frustration with the administration that got them killed. They didn't have to die. They could have done this right. But Joe Biden, he wanted to be the man. He wanted to be the guy who could brag, I got us out of Afghanistan. And then he went before the country and called it an extraordinary success. You lost your child, and you have to listen to the president call it a success? Just disgusting. Let's listen to Mr. Schmitz.
This is Mark Schmitz, Gold Star father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz. Here we are on a beautiful holiday weekend day. I got to stop what I'm doing, spending time with what's left of my family, to address a heinous, vile, and disgusting post put out by Kamala Harris, trying to incite those that don't follow the truth that President Trump was in Arlington as a political stunt. Shows you how much you know about the 13 families. We invited him to be there. Groundwork was put into place by Congressman Ice's office to make sure we followed protocol. Why did we want Trump there? It wasn't to help his political campaign. We wanted a leader. That explains why you and Joe didn't get a call. Imagine for a second that your kid is killed, and there's a president of the United States willing to take you under his wing and listen to you. That's what we found in President Trump. Certainly not you, and certainly not Joe Biden. You have 13 families who have been waiting over 3 years to so much as get a phone call, to so much as hear our kids' names said aloud in the halls of Congress, at a State of the Union, hell, anything. The irony behind your post that you give a rat's ass about our military or our veterans, Jared's brothers and sisters in arms, the rest of the 12, their brothers and sisters in arms, is an outright lie. We're living proof of that. You're despicable. You have zero business running this country. And I pray to God, Americans wake the hell up and get your ass out of office.
Now that's how real people speak. That's how real people react to tragedy, to an outrage. I mean, Tim Walz could have said something like that about Hirsch, Goldberg, Bolin. Kamala Harris could have. Joe Biden could have. Hell, they could have been there that day. He wouldn't have done this video. They would have. I mean, they're not going to support Harris or Walz, but if Harris showed up, she wouldn't have. She could. Someone would have walked down and placed a wreath with her. And again, she's 4 miles away. She is just a heartless ghoul. These are soulless people. These are people with nothing inside, no feeling, no emotion, no empathy, no compassion for someone like this and the other 12 families. Just, they don't care. Kamala Harris is sitting in her house going, does this help me or hurt me? You know, how will this affect my campaign? She doesn't care about the pain, the grief these poor families are feeling. She doesn't care that she was the last one in the room, that she supported the disaster that led to the death of these 13 heroes. It's just disgusting. And I'm with you, Mark Schmitz. I pray to God that the people wake up and see who the Democrats have nominated, who they anointed as their leader. Just a vapid, vacant, soulless creature. And I think I'm feeling a little better because she's being forced to actually talk. forced to actually answer questions, sort of answer questions. We'll get to the CNN interview and so much more because she's being exposed. She is being exposed. And I know lots of people, they don't pay attention Labor Day weekend. They don't pay attention in the summer, but hopefully they're going to start paying attention because she can't win this. I mean, I'm a little nervous because it's close. She's got a lead in some swing states, but I'm hoping people start paying attention. We'll get to the debate, some of the highlights and lowlights, and some of the statements from these people and from Joe Biden, who's out there on the campaign trail. By the way, he shows up at the White House. He's asked about the death of an American, and he says, I'm heading to Pittsburgh to campaign for Kamala. What? Who cares? Nobody cares. No one's listening to you anymore. No, they don't want you on the campaign trail. And we'll show you why. Another colossal Biden blunder. We'll get to that and lots more. But first,
excuse me.
All right, let's do Biden on the campaign trail. Then we'll get to the debate. My analysis. I mean, Jesus, I keep calling it a debate. The interview. The last thing I should be calling it is a debate. The foot massage that Dana Bash gave Tim Walz and Kamala Harris on Thursday night. But Joe Biden went to Pittsburgh, to shore up the support in Western Pennsylvania for Kamala Harris and among the working class, the working people. I'm not sure what he says here. Maybe you can interpret it for me, Ironhead. It's as usual, a garbled mess from our alleged sitting president. I guess you know why they pulled a coup. You know why they forced him out. Go ahead, let's listen.
You can no longer be the manufacturing capital of the world. Where the hell is that written? We are the greatest manufacturing city, county in the world, state in the world, city in the world. It's going to remain that way.
We are the greatest manufacturing capital, city, county, save the world. What is he? Get him back, keep him back out there, Kamala. He know what he does. He exudes joy. This campaign that's based on joy, that bitter, angry old man, he could feel the joy coming off Joe Biden with every angry rant you hear from him. Oh, we got to get to this too before we get to the interview with Dana Bash. Ask yourself, what kind of person changes her accent depending on the audience? I'll tell you what kind. An empty kind, a vapid kind, a person that has no real convictions. I mean, you can criticize Trump for lots of things, but he never pretends to be something he's not. He'll meet with farmers and coal miners and he'll wear the same blue suit, same red tie, because he knows putting on a camo hat or a cowboy hat is just faking it. I mean, again, this is a race between the most fake, the phoniest, the most contrived candidate in American political history versus perhaps the least fake. You could say what you want about Trump. He's not fake. He's real. He's genuine. He is what he is. This person, we don't know what she is. It depends, I guess, on who she's speaking to. Listen to this over the weekend.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Detroit.
What is that accent? Is that just Kamala trying to be hip?
Yes, it is.
She made the same speech in front of a different audience on the same day with a different accent. I mean, you don't get faker than that. Do we have them back to back?
Yep.
Thank unions for sick leave. Thank unions for paid family leave. Thank unions for your vacation time.
You better thank a union member.
You better thank a union member. What she going to do that? Is she going to go in front of a Hispanic audience or an Asian American audience and have a different accent? There's nothing real. There's nothing on the level. This is the fakest, phoniest person ever to run for office. You will never know what she really believes because I don't think she knows what she really believes. She just sits with her handlers or consultants, and she tries to pander to them with a different accent every day. And she did an interview. We waited 40 days. She didn't go solo. She went with her comfort support commie, Tim Walz. She sat down with CNN, which is as friendly a network, and Dana Bash, as friendly an interview as she is ever going to find. You want to hear the scoreboard right now? Interviews given. Trump Vance versus Harris Walz in the last month. Trump Vance have given 34 interviews, most of them solo, many of them in front of hostile interviewers on hostile networks. Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, one interview, if you can call it that. It was recorded, so we don't know exactly what happened, what they edited out. And she had Tim Walz by her side, and it was very strange. The whole setup was strange. She sat slumped over in a chair, and he sat tall, and she looked like she's a foot shorter than him, and she looked small. She didn't look presidential. That's their fault. I thought they would do a better job of presentation. But the whole thing was a joke. Dana Bash, and we saw her interview J.D. Vance, very adversarial, very hostile. Then she sits down with her candidate, and she barely followed up on when they were lying. Obviously, Tim Walz, when he's talking, he's lying. And she barely followed up, and she let her off the hook on so many issues. The whole fracking thing. I mean, she's on record, on tape, on video, saying she opposes fracking. She supports the Green New Deal. Now, any politician who supports the Green New Deal, they show their true colors. That means you're not very bright because it's just not tenable. It's $93 trillion. It would destroy the economy. And she co-sponsored the Green New Deal, and she was dead set against fracking. And now she's in favor of fracking. And she said, I've always been true to my principles. And Dana Bash just lets her off the hook. But here is the most remarkable question and answer I think I've ever seen from a candidate. She has, one question. You're not sure every question that's coming, but one for certain. It's what would you do on day one, particularly with Kamala, who's promising things on day one, even though she's sitting vice president. So it's essentially a softball. Trump gets this question, and his answer's clear as could be. Drill, baby, drill, close the border, end the wars. Those are big issues, the biggest issues. And he just runs right through them. Here's what I'll do. Drill, open up energy, shut down the border, the Harris-Biden open border, and end the foreign wars. That's what he's going to do. At least that's what he's promising to do on day one. She knows this question's coming. Keep that in mind. Her handlers, her advisors, they all know she's going to be asked, what are you going to do on day one? And her answer is just stunningly incoherent and empty and embarrassing. And it just gets worse from there. But let's listen to the first question in the first interview from the Democrat nominee for president. Go ahead.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation. And I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
So what would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy
J.D. Vance's idea.
There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
Okay. Anybody? What's she going to do on day one? Anybody? Here is, in case you were wondering exactly what she said, I have the transcript here. This is Kamala Harris. What would you do on day one? Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade, which they've controlled the White House for 8 of the last 12 years, but I won't get bogged down here. We have had someone in the former president, someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation. I think that people are ready to turn the page. The sitting vice president says it's time to turn the page. And of course, there comes Bash. So what would you do on day one? That was a good follow-up. I'll give her credit for that one. And then the answer goes for, 3 more paragraphs and just a rambling mess. She doesn't even know how to answer the simplest, most obvious question. What are you going to do on day one? And then you have this absolute fraud, this liar in Tim Walz, who has lied about everything, you name it, about his rank, about his service in the military, about his career in coaching, about his DUI arrest, about how he impregnated his wife, everything he talks about, everything he says is a lie. It is remarkable that they actually vetted him, talked to him, looked into him, and chose him as her running mate. And Bash does ask about all the lies he's told, and his answer is a classic. I want to hang this one in the Louvre. This is amazing. Let's get to why Tim Walz basically has lied about everything. Go ahead.
Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war, did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar is not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
I just want.
There's the headline on CNN. My grammar is not always correct. His grammar. So when he said he was a command sergeant major, when he wasn't, when he said he carried a weapon of war in war, that was grammar. That was a grammatical error. That is oh, he's such a fraud. I cannot cannot believe she chose him, and he's still on the ticket, and all he does is lie. Hey, do you know who Jeff Walz is? Anybody? Ironhead, you know who Jeff Walz is? Well, you're probably not going to find out much about Jeff Walz, at least from the mainstream media. Jeff Walz is Tim Walz's brother, and he has said when people find out about Tim, they're not gonna want to support him. He put out a Facebook post, and the New York Post reported it. I'm not sure anyone else did. They're too busy talking to Mary Trump, Trump's niece, who hates him, who appears on CNN and MSNBC regularly. I'm going to guess you're not going to hear from Jeff Walz. Joe Scarborough is probably not going to put Tim Walz on the panel. Jake Taber's probably going to not invite him on his show. He writes on Facebook, I'm 100% opposed to all his ideology. I've thought long and hard about doing something. I'm torn between telling the truth about Tim Walz or just keeping my family out of it. But he says, the stories I could tell, he's not the type of character you want making decisions about our future. So he has stories to tell. He just said that. I got stories to tell about Tim Walz. Gee, I don't know if I were a reporter for the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, I might give Jeff Walz a call. He says he has stories to tell about one of the nominees on a major ticket, and you'll hear nothing from Jeff Walz, except maybe, he'll get on Newsmax, New York Post, and hopefully he will tell the truth, because the people who know him, the people who served in the National Guard with him, they hate him. They sat down with Megyn Kelly, 4 guys who served with him, and they just held nothing back, called him a traitor, a coward. They said he slithered away from service when his unit was deployed to Afghanistan. He's got issues, and hopefully we get to learn all about him. There he is. There's Jeff Walz tweeting about his fraud brother. And sounds to me like he's available. Give him a call. Put him on Jake Tapper. What do you say, Anderson Cooper? You want to talk to Jeff Walz? But I thought the debate was a disaster for Kamala Harris. You got to ask one question. Does she sound presidential? Can you imagine her in the Oval Office for 4 years and no honest person could say, yes, she sounds like a leader. She's not a leader. She's not presidential. She failed miserably when she ran on her own 4 years ago. And here she is, top of the ticket, leading in some of the polls. And nobody who listens to her, nobody who watches her with her fake accents can say, yes, I could see her in the Oval Office making the big decisions. Do we have more from Kamala?
Yeah, this is her basically taking a softball and punting on it because she can't even answer the Donald Trump called you not black question.
Oh, this was very strange. She knew this was coming too. Trump said she turned black, which was kind of dumb and unnecessary. And I thought she was going to go off on this for like 10 minutes, and she didn't. Very strange. Go ahead.
Ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump. I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah. Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Next question, please. And she laughs, of course, as she always does. She laughs when she laughed when she was asked about the Afghanistan withdrawal. She laughed when she was asked about hostages. Laughs. They told her, don't laugh too much. She was trying to control it, but she can't. And look at him. God, these people. All right, before we get to this, the saddest story of the weekend, I want that answer from Kamala about Musk and about X. As you may know, X has been banned in Brazil. X, they don't like it. It's the only free speech platform. It's the only place where conservatives and liberals can speak freely. Musk is the greatest champion of free speech we've ever known. and he is, he's put his money where his mouth is, and he is proud of that, and he should be. X is the place people go now for unfiltered commentary, go there for news, and they can't stand it. She would like to do what they're doing in Brazil, banning X, or what they're doing in the UK, arresting people for tweeting things that the regime declares are offensive. That would be that is in the future in this country if this woman gets elected. But this is remarkable. Keep in mind, she was the attorney general of our biggest state. She was a senator. She is vice president. She is running for president, and she doesn't understand the First Amendment. Listen to this.
He has lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
She just described free speech. They're directly speaking to millions of people without oversight. Yeah, that's kind of the whole point, you bubblehead. They're directly speaking to people. Yeah, she says Musk has lost his privileges. So it's a privilege to speak freely in her mind. And keep in mind, the vice president candidate, Tim Walz, the fraud, says that hate speech and misinformation is not protected by the First Amendment. I mean, he's just stupid. She's a lawyer. She was attorney general. And she says an American citizen has lost his privilege to speak freely because he has not censored on behalf of the regime, which is what Facebook did. We learned that for sure just a couple of weeks ago from Mark Zuckerberg himself. But Twitter X won't play along. So she says he lost his privileges. We need oversight. We need censorship, kind of like they have in Brazil. God, she is not just empty. She is dangerous. Get ready. That's coming.
We can't move on. We can't move on from her yet because she once again goes back to the unburdened by what has been.
Oh no, God! I'm telling you, this is funny because her handlers, her people have told her, "Can you drop that? It's really dumb, and everyone's mocking you." But she can't help herself. She's standing there with all the union thugs, going back to her old talking point, which is just hilarious. Good.
We have dreams. We can see what is possible, unburdened by what has been.
Unburdened by what is. By the way, you know what else she did over the last few days? She stood with Al Sharpton and said she would support reparations, which is the most insane policy of them all. We know she's extreme in every way, on you name it, the environment, abortion, everything. Financial, we know she wants to destroy the economy by taxing unrealized gains and jack up the corporate tax rate and jack up the capital gains tax. She's economically illiterate. Here she is with Al Sharpton saying she would support reparations, which is madness. Good.
But in the area of reparations for descendants of Africans enslaved, if you elected president, would you sign that bill if it came across your desk?
When I am elected president, I will sign that bill.
That is unbelievable. She will sign a reparations bill to give billions, probably trillions, to descendants. Her ancestors were slave traders from Jamaica, and she wants to. It's absolute madness. And 70, 75, 80 million people are going to vote for a candidate who says she will sign a bill, not she'll think about it, sign a bill which will provide reparations for people depending on this color of your skin. Absolute insanity. All right, before we go, I got to do this story because over the weekend there was talk about Kamala's interview in my world and in other things going on in the world, and Arlington National Cemetery and Joe Biden's 17-day beach vacation. But you know what people were talking about more than anything is this. unbelievable tragedy in New Jersey where NHL star Johnny Gaudreau, former BC star, former Hobie Baker award winner, just an absolute stud. He and his brother out for a bike ride on Thursday night. The day before their sister's wedding, they were groomsmen getting ready for the wedding, killed by a drunk driver, allegedly, in New Jersey. They were out riding their bikes, and this maniac was passing a couple other cars and just hit them and killed them. And you think it's sad, you can't even grasp it. I mean, his brother, Matty, high school coach, his wife's pregnant. Johnny Gaudreau had 2 kids, beautiful wife, everything, just incredible life. Ended, and they postponed the wedding or canceled the wedding. The story is just heartbreaking on every level. And you hear nothing but great things about Johnny Gaudreau. Johnny Hockey, they called him at BC. And his life ends because this piece of filth right here just told the cops he had 5 or 6 beers, which if you do the math, that means 12 or 13 beers for a drunk driver. And he faces a judge on Zoom after the accident, after the murder. And he's not happy because he has to spend the weekend in jail. You know, he had plans. It was Labor Day weekend. And he didn't think he should have to spend a weekend in jail. I got news for you, pal. You're going to spend a lot longer than that in jail. His name is Sean Higgins. He was a major in the National Guard. And he told the cops he had, quote, 5 or 6 beers before he got behind the wheel of his Jeep Cherokee. And his vehicle hit the brothers while he was speeding and passing another vehicle. He's being held until Thursday, where we'll have another hearing. But watch his reaction to being held in jail over the weekend. Go ahead.
We'll see you back in court on Thursday.
So I'm here until Thursday?
Yes, sir. Yeah, once the state files a motion for your pretrial detention, the statutes and court rules require me to hold you over for a minimum of 72 hours before your hearing. Because we have a weekend and we have a Monday holiday, 72 hours becomes Thursday.
So I'm here until Thursday. He's wearing a bulletproof vest, by the way. What the hell is that all about? And he rolls his eyes and leans back and sighs because he has to spend the weekend in jail after killing a 31-year-old Johnny Gaudreau and his 29-year-old brother, Matt. And he's like, oh, damn, I got to spend a whole week in jail? Bummer. Well, sorry, bub, Sean Higgins. You're going away for a long time as well. You should. It's just, I mean, you got to read the posts from Gaudreau's wife on Instagram. It's just the most heartbreaking story I've ever read. Really is. And we'll finish on that happy note, you know. But
as
anyway.
we tend to do.
Oh, God, I'm telling you, read the story. There's a great story in the Philadelphia Inquirer about the family. Just sound like the best, you know, just great people. And he just destroyed their lives. Little kids, families, you know, wife. Oh, just brutal, brutal story. But all right, that'll do it for today, this Tuesday, September 3rd. And what a wild weekend. What a crazy weekend. And it's going to get crazier as we look ahead to the presidential debate next week. Kamala has to do it. She's going to debate him next week. I can't wait. That's going to be fun. But all right, that'll do it. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Arnett. I'm Gerry Callahan. This